Hi, I'm John Solari, your host of The Method Actor Speaks. And back by popular demand, I couldn't help but ask him to come back. We get this book here. Now, Barbara, you say your last name and everything?
Barbara Sternig.
Sternig.
Yes,
okay.
Sternig's just like Howard Stern, but put an IG at the end.
Oh, I did a Howard Stern show many years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, I really like Howard. He was interesting.
He is interesting.
And you're both tabloids, in a sense.
Yeah, well, that's right. We are. We both go for the sort of the sideways angle into the story.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're both interested in the news, but more kind of dissecting it than just telling it straight.
He gets a little more deeper into the personalities.
Yes, yes, he does.
You do that in your book, though. You get into
Yes,
the personalities,
yes.
your personality especially.
Of course. Well, I was a National Enquirer reporter for 20 years. During that time, obviously, the story was the thing. How you get the story was irrelevant, really, as far as the story was concerned. The news was the thing. And that was the brief that all journalists used to have in those days. Stay out of the story. You're there to report what happened. So anyway, after I left the National Enquirer, for the first time in all those many, many years, I had a chance to kind of sit back and reflect on some of the amazing adventures and escapades I got into while I was chasing the most popular and famous people in the world. And I just sat down and started writing one day. I thought, gosh, I'm going to forget all this stuff. And I really began writing for my own amusement, just to kind of remember everything and kind of try to pull up all of those details again. And before you know it, I had a book. And so that's how this book came to be. And the book is really, as it says on the cover, it answers the two questions most asked, not only of me, but any Enquirer reporter. The two questions that we always got and get are, is any of that stuff true? That's the first one. And then the second question invariably is, how do you get that stuff? So that's what this is. That
we want to get into,
Yeah.
if you don't mind. Because I read when you were talking about how your first encounter with Sinatra,
Yes.
you and your girlfriend, and
Yeah.
you had to play almost like you were going to be almost like a hooker.
Like groupie, yeah, exactly. Well, we had to tease them along thinking
Right.
they were going to have a big payoff,
Yeah.
which of course was never on the cards. We knew that, they didn't. But that was the first story I ever did on the road for the National Enquirer, and of course it would be about probably the most famous, biggest guy that was around and who is still considered to be a pop icon, Frank Sinatra. And it so happens that Frank Sinatra was the favorite celebrity of our publisher, Mr. Generoso Pope Jr. Gene Pope, you know who that is.
Right.
And Mr. Pope, I thought a girl could get the story better than a male reporter. I was brand newly minted reporter, and he sent me out on the road. That was quite a shock. And I was sent out with a one-sentence brief. And the brief was, compare Frank Sinatra's lifestyle with John Denver's. Well, Frank Sinatra and John Denver were on the same playbill at Harrah's in Tahoe. And so he thought that was a kind of a natural, contrast. How could two people be so different? Sinatra with his brawling, boozing broads, and John Denver with his granola and Rocky Mountain High and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, that was the theme of the story. So he sent another girl, tryout reporter. She wasn't even on staff yet, but that was great because the two of us could play off each other.
That was interesting about her. Yes, good.
Yeah, and she was great actually. She had been a reporter for Confidential magazine, and so her talents and contacts kind of were a natural for the National Enquirer. She wasn't on staff. She stayed a short while. But any case, so the two of us went up to Lake Tahoe, and then the question was really, where do you start? Where do you even start to dig into a story like that? How do you possibly get near Frank Sinatra? But anyway, we were young and cute, and we brought all the cute clothes and all the tight jeans and all of that. And just having hung out in Las Vegas quite a bit my previous job was as Rona Barrett's writer.
Right.
And I used to go up to Las Vegas very, very often to cover the openings. So, I mean, I was familiar with the casino life and everything, and I knew from then that the pit bosses always know everything. The pit bosses are the go-to guys. So the first thing that I did was, of course, get into my little tight jeans and my little crop top and wiggle my way into the casino to find me a pit boss. So anyway, that's where the chapter starts. Maybe we'll read something from that.
Yeah. But it's interesting because when I was reading it, I'm thinking, what, you know, at the end he left.
Yes.
When we say that.
Yes.
But not Sinatra, I'm talking about the guy you were with.
Oh my gosh, yeah, thank God.
What if he didn't leave?
Well,
Have you ever thought about that?
I thought about it at the time. I just tried to put it out of my mind because, I mean, bad things probably would have happened, you know. Undoubtedly bad things would have
Bad
happened.
things, or you would have had to have sex with him.
Well, yeah, I was hoping I could get out of it somehow.
Right.
But obviously that was what he expected.
Right.
And that wasn't what I planned, not at all. But we also, I just had done my research on Frank Sinatra, and I'd covered stories about him for so long that I did know that his entourage were like glue.
Right.
Those guys just hung around him like glue, and he was the center of, he was the vortex of that whirlwind, and they were the wind. So they were always twirling around him. And so, you know, I found out how this particular chapter ended up, which it was kind of a circuitous way we got there. But of course, we found out Frank Sinatra, after his closing night cocktail party, was going to be helicoptered off to his private jet and go back wherever he was going. So I just put my thinking cap on, and I figured, well, those guys are not going to say bye Frank and let him walk all by himself to his helicopter.
Right.
And so that was what I was totally banking on.
Well, I guess the moral of the story is to do your homework.
Oh, absolutely. And that is the moral of the story for all reporters.
Right, I was thinking that.
But particularly, well, not even particularly, certainly for National Enquirer reporters, celebrity reporters, you really do have to know who you're covering.
Yeah.
And so.
And who surrounds it.
And what their métier is, what their whirlwind of life is, what their circle is. And so that all worked out so great. And as a young reporter just starting at the Enquirer, it kind of cemented my reputation there. Yes.
You made your bones.
Yes, I did. I did.
Because actually, Vegas at that time was run by the mob.
Oh my gosh, you know about that.
Well, but I'm saying they treated you like kings. I mean, it's so different today.
Oh my gosh, yes.
I mean, there was no crime. There was anything you wanted was there.
Absolutely.
Everybody was treated equal.
Absolutely, and you know, in those days, at the casinos, when I worked for Rona Barrett, I would fly up there after work to cover an opening. In those days, you could get out to LAX in a very short time and dump your little car and get on an airplane, no problem. So I used to go after work and cover the evening show, you know. Sometimes I'd stay overnight, sometimes I'd fly back that very night. But if I stayed overnight, oh my God, they'd put you in a beautiful suite and you'd have carte blanche with the menus and everything. The next morning, they'd make sure you had a wonderful breakfast and get a limo to take you back to the airport. You know.
You're right. So many people, they wish the mob still ran it because, I mean, then when Howard Hughes came in,
oh my gosh, yes.
you know, then the corporations took over and they just destroyed it.
Yes,
They
yes.
really have.
Yes. You know, speaking of Howard Hughes, I should really, I have a sequel to this book coming. I wrote this book some years ago, but at the same time I wrote another 12 or 13 chapters, which I did not include in this book, just in the interest of making it a little, you know, a little smaller and tighter. So I have all those chapters, and I decided, you know, I'm going to just pull them together and make it in. One of the chapters is about when Howard Hughes died. And I knew a lot of people in Las Vegas. I was extremely close friends with Wayne Newton, who was a protege of Howard Hughes. And so through Wayne, I knew Walter Kane, if you know these names.
Yes.
Perry Lieber. This was the guy that ran the Desert Inn, and Walter Kane ran the Sands and the Frontier. And so these guys, these were of the original friends of Howard Hughes.
Right.
They were old guys by then, you know, and they helped me a lot do that story. Yeah, and so
Oh.
did Wayne.
So that's, will it still be called
Well,
Secrets of It?
Maybe
Or
maybe more
part
secret,
two?
maybe more secrets of it,
That
or
could
even
work too.
more secret, even more secretive.
It's more secretive. There was a fellow that I knew, I believe he passed away, Gene Kilroy. I don't know if you knew Gene Kilroy.
No.
But he was the guy you saw, he was 20 years with Muhammad Ali too. But if you wanted something in Vegas, you went to Gene Kilroy. No matter, you know, what it was.
He was connected.
And he had the right name, Kilroy.
Kilroy was here.
You know, Gene Kilroy, everybody. I remember you know, Mike Tyson, I was talking to him and I told him, you know, Mike, I says, you know, Gene liked you. He says, Gene doesn't like nobody.
Oh well, if he liked you, that's
He
good.
liked me, yeah, and but he did like Tyson. I remember this one before Tyson went to jail and all that. But that was a setup. Anyway, we won't get into that. I'm surprised the Inquirer never looked into that.
Into the Mike Tyson story?
Yeah, do you know when he was about the rape?
Yeah, I think, I'm trying to think if that happened after I already left the paper. I'm sure they covered it somehow.
Probably, but you're still with the paper now, right?
Well,
You
I'm
do-
there only on a freelance basis.
On a freelance.
I left the staff actually way back in 1995. I was there for 20 years, 75 to 95. And then it was time to move on to other things, and the paper was changing, and there was part of a huge editorial downsizing, and the most senior people all were sent off to other assignments, and so that is when I left. But of course I went to the Star for a year after that, and have always freelanced.
The Star. What's her name? Is that Jane that I see on Facebook? What's Jane?
Oh, Janet Charlton?
Janet Charlton.
Janet Charlton,
Is
yeah,
that the
gosh,
Star?
is she still at the Star?
I don't know.
Yeah, the Star has gone to a more like a magazine format now,
I
like
remember
Us.
they had a television show for
OK.
years, didn't they?
Star.
They did. I think they had a television show.
Did they? Not when I was there. That's all I can say. But
They had that. You know, your life. I'm sitting here, I'm listening to you, and I'm thinking, my God, how come they don't make a movie about you?
oh well, from your lips.
Really?
To the movie producer's ears.
I mean, what a story that would be. What it's really like to be a reporter.
Yes, well, that's what the
You know,
book is.
this, yeah. I mean, you're telling about them, but to see this happening on film, some of the, especially
Yes.
this Frank Sinatra one,
Well, that one
and
was...
and also the Andrew Dickinson one.
Oh, yes. Oh, I'm telling you, the things that happened wouldn't happen today. That's all we can say. For one thing, I really don't think that today a reporter can get so next to people without going through the barrage of the handlers.
What do you think changed that?
Well, I think the social media, I think all of the media coverage changed it. The fact that when I was working for the National Enquirer, it was kind of the only game in town. People weren't doing tabloid journalism. There was no E.T. I mean, E.T. came along, I guess, while I was towards the end of my tenure there. But they didn't have the television tabloids. They certainly didn't have all of the Twitters and Facebooks and all of those feeds that are continuous.
Is that what you think made it, because you have all that, or is it
Well, and
more...
I just think that the studio system also changed radically, so that people that were not exactly major stars could get a following. And then reality television came in. There was no reality television in those earlier
that's
days.
true.
There was one show though that it was called That's Incredible, that came on in the 1970s, maybe the mid to late 70s, when I was first working for the National Enquirer. And they used to take stories off of That's Incredible and put them on. Sometimes they'd go on the evening news, and then all in print, all the people on That's Incredible used to say, "Oh, those terrible tabloids! Oh, you can't be." And guess what? Every single week, they took a story out of our pages and did it on television.
You're right.
So that was the answer to that, But it became a kind of a paragon of tabloidism. And I believe that the television shows and everything are modeled after what we started so long ago, what Mr. Pope started really, I guess maybe about 1970 or 71.
Mr. Pope, did he also have the tomatoes? There was a Pope company, an Italian company that used to have tomatoes, Italian tomatoes called Pope.
Really? I've never heard that. I
just
kind of doubt that because I think I would have heard it. But,
Now, I'm thinking now a lot of that, when you were a reporter and this and that, you still had that mentality of stars that were left over
oh my
from
gosh.
the studio days who were available.
Absolutely. You know, that's really what I've felt so grateful when I think back on my career, and which I'm still in the middle of. But I think to the early days of my career, when I was a kid starting out, those big stars were around. James Stewart. I went to Jimmy Durante's house to a party one time.
God, that was
I mean, unbelievable. And, all of the old people were still there. And my assignment was to cover them, and they were out at the parties. They really were. They were very accessible. And people like, I don't know, Rory Calhoun, John Wayne, think back to all those and the old-timey TV stars, or Jim Garner and Doug McClure and Bob Fuller and, those people from early days of television. They were around. I went to a party one time with Gail Storm.
Gail Storm,
She
My
was
Little Margie.
My Little Margie. And Lee Van Cleef, who scared me
Yeah.
even at the party because he was scary looking.
The good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yes. I mean, these people were at house parties, and I was invited, not because of me, but because I was Rona Barrett's writer.
Barrett, yes.
So anyway.
But you too, because, I mean, they had to like you.
Well, they did, and they got to know me too, so that would be just fine if they wanted me to be there and write it for Rona. They knew it would get on Rona's report. So.
Well, in part 2 of this, we're going to have you do some reading. But I'm just saying, some of the people you just mentioned were with my agent. Mikkel Jennings, Walter Mikkel, and Jim Jennings and Sharon DeBoer. Because I remember Rory Calhoun and a few others were with my agents. My agent, a lot of them were in movies where they were like character leads, they called them. Yes. Back in those days. And my agency back then was very big on that. And a lot of them, yeah. But I'm thinking, like today, you don't have the actors that you had back then.
No.
So it's so much.
It's so much different. I even think of an incident. Just speaking of these great old stars, Robert Mitchum.
Yeah.
Who, I mean, growing up, I used to see his movies on TV, and I always loved that hole he had in his chin and everything. Well, I was at a big chili cook-off. They used to have this celebrity chili cook-off up in I think it's called Rosemead, California. Anyway, I went up there to cover it and ended up seated at a table, and there were a bunch of lady stars there, and all older lady stars. And here I come in, I'm a young reporter, and Bob Mitchum was sitting on one side of me, and then the lady stars were here and across from me. And they asked me what I did, and I said I was a National Enquirer reporter. And they started to be really mean to me. They started to just be awful, telling me that they hated the National Enquirer and why was I here and all this kind of. Well, you know what Robert Mitchum did? He picked me up by the elbow and he said, "Barbara, I think we need to go outside and have a cigarette, don't you?" I didn't smoke, he did. And so I said, "Oh, yes." He rescued me from that little snake pit and took me outside, and we sat there while he smoked a cigarette, and then we hung around for a couple hours, and he was drinking quite a lot, and it was, oh my God, I just couldn't even believe this.
I was picturing the great big glasses he used to wear.
Oh, I just thought, what a gentleman to, see a situation that wasn't very nice and to rescue somebody out of it if they could, and he did. He was a stand-up guy. He really was.
He came across that way in the movies, and so you figure, in life, that's really nice. It's a good thing for the audience to hear too.
Yes.
About people like him.
Well, it's being a National Enquirer reporter was not always an easy. It wasn't ever an easy job, but it was a lot of times you had to take abuse. People didn't like the paper. Celebrities were scared of the paper, or maybe they had something to hide and they really wanted to get you out of the way. And
Yeah.
So these were the challenges. Those really were the challenges of that job.
Well, we're just about out of time. I think we got some time.
Good.
I was looking there very hard. I don't like to wear the glasses because you get the glare.
Oh, okay.
I
Yes.
notice in movies a lot of times what they do when people wear glasses, they take the lenses out.
Oh, I think they have a spray that they
What
put
they
over.
put on it?
Yeah, it's like a
Today-
dulling spray that goes over
And
the.
today they got everything, but years ago they said just
Take the
take the lenses out.
Well, I wonder what somebody does if they're nearsighted and
Well, I mean, if they wanted them to, yeah,
or farsighted
well,
or whatever. It is.
you had to know your lines.
Yeah, better know your life. Exactly.
No cue cards could help.
No.
They couldn't see it.
No. So, well, you know what happened? I think apropos that question that you asked about how things have changed, I think this newspaper, the National Enquirer, was very eminently responsible for what I call the tabloidization of the American media. In the days
I like the title.
Yes, when I was working there, you did not find the latest hair shaving of Britney Spears on the evening news, or you didn't find the elevator fight of Jay-Z headlining the evening news.
Nationally, yes.
These kinds of stories just were not pertinent. People didn't need to know that at that time. And now apparently they need or want to know those things at the top of the assignment editor's agenda. So,
I guess that means could that mostly be because there's so much channel, so much information out there that they just got to put everything and sensationalize it.
yes, and we have had another thing that I sort of call the celebritization of the American culture.
Yeah.
Celebrities, everybody wants to.
Yeah.
You talk to kids, what do you want
Paris
to
Hilton, all these people
Oh, I
that
know.
never did anything with the Kardashians.
be? That's correct, and I mean, although they have I certainly know how to do business, that's for sure.
Yeah, but this is what they,
But I mean, what are they famous for? It's like we used to say about Zsa Zsa Gabor. She's famous for being famous.
well, at least she got into movies
Yes.
and she acted.
She
Even
did.
whether it was badly or not, she did it.
And she was a great housekeeper too.
Probably.
As she always said, no, because every time she got divorced, she kept the house.
Kept the oh, I like that. She was a piece of work. Her sister wasn't bad either.
Oh, those,
What was it?
Ava, Green Acres.
Green Acres.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the wonderful Eddie Albert.
Eddie Albert.
Yeah, he was a great guy too. And then they had another sister, Magda, and I think she married George Sanders after Zsa Zsa married him.
Oh, really? Yeah.
I think they had a duel.
And he wound up committing suicide, and everybody loved him for his voice.
Yes.
He
yes.
did have a great
Oh,
voice.
he had a fantastic voice.
Voices, and that's another thing. You later will talk a bit about Burton, one of my idols.
Oh my gosh.
I used to
he's
do an imitation of him when I was in Attica,
Oh.
the state prison. The prison guards loved it.
I'm sure he had that golden dulcet
That's who made
voice.
him that voice.
Oh, that
Well,
voice. that
British,
voice.
well, he was Welsh, but they can scream and it sounds normal.
Yes, yes.
When we do it, it's not.
It sounds strident.
Right.
Correct. There's a chapter about
I know,
Richard
it's
Burton.
really.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, he was.
So, folks, we're going to do that. Get ready to do part 2. And this is an incredible lady, and I could do more. Maybe I should come to your place next time. It's easier for you, probably.
No, not at all.
Okay? And thank you, folks. If you want to get in touch and you want to come on the show, get in touch. And there's a great, I want to put a plug in for Frankie's on Melrose, all right? It's a great, the best Italian food there is.
Frankie's?
Frankie's on Melrose.
Ooh, I want to go.
Really
I
is.
love Italian.
And if you like fish, it's the best.
Fantastic.
Frankie usually runs the San Gennaro Festival. He was the president.
Oh,
And it's where every Italian actor from New York, well, he's from Mulberry Street.
oh,
So, every Italian actor and every wannabe, that played a gangster or wants to be a gangster, always used to go there.
uh-huh.
And it was a great place. Oh, the food. Years ago they had the piano,
Uh-huh.
and people would get up and sing, but they did, the Hollywood, they charge for everything now.
Yeah.